there, it's Carol with Carol B Crafts. In this tutorial, I'll be showing you how to use the Stampin' jig to perfectly place your images on your card. You'll also learn how to mask out a portion of your stamp so that you only use the part that you want to use. We'll be using a technique that I call white washing technique to color our image of basket and succulents. I'll also be showing you a technique to avoid bulging sides on your cards when you're using a thicker ribbon like the one that comes in the Succulent Garden Customer Reward Package. I'll also show you how to make this faux bow so that you can avoid having bulk on your cards. Today we're going to be making this beautiful Thinking of You card, and we will be using papers from the Succulent Garden DSP collection package. This DSP collection package is available through my customer reward program, and the details can be found at my website www.carolbcrafts.com. From the Succulent Garden DSP collection package, you will need a sheet of Old Olive cardstock, a sheet of Tip Top Taupe cardstock, a sheet of the Whisper White, and these two printed patterns from the Succulent Garden DSP. You'll also need your Whisper White Succulent Garden ribbon. In addition to these products, you will need 2 pieces of thick Whisper White cardstock and 2 envelopes. The stamp set that we'll be using today is Basket of Wishes. We'll be using 4 stamps from this stamp set. We'll be using the medium-size basket, Thinking of You, Sending a Basket Full of Wonderful Wishes for your birthday, even though this particular card will not be a birthday card. And then we'll also be using the little bunch of succulents that go inside the basket. Some of the tools that you will need are, you will most definitely need your Stampin' jig. You can do the cards without it, but it's going to be a little more difficult for you. So if you have one of these, please get it out because you will need it. We will be working with photopolymer stamps, so we'll be using our piercing mat. For the coloring of the basket and the succulents, we'll be using our ink pads, the Tip Top Taupe, and the Old Olive. And then to apply the ink, we will be using our aqua painter brush, but we will be using it without water inside of it. So if you have water inside of it, you will need to empty it out. And if you don't have the aqua painter brush, you can use a fine tip paintbrush. This is has a number 1 on it, and I did make a basket. I colored a basket using the brush. It came out a little differently, but I'm not sure if that's because of the ink consistency or because of the brush. But you can see there's quite a difference between the one done with the brush and the one done with the aqua painter. I did do one with the blender pen, and I wasn't very happy with the results. So I decided to stick with the aqua painter. A couple of other things that you'll need is some washi tape, because we will do some masking, and then you'll need some regular tape for when we do the bow, the ribbon. For the paper measurements, normally I like to cut the paper with you, but because this video is so long, I wanted to go ahead and just give you the measurements. So we have 2 card bases, our A2 size, 8.5 by 5.5, scored at 4.25, and fold it in half. Then the next layer is our tip-top taupe, and that is in 5 1/8 inch by 3 7/8 inches. Then our next layer is our old olive, and it is 4 7/8 by 3 5/8. Our DSP is cut at 4 3/4 by 3.5. Then our tip-top taupe is cut at 3 3/8 by 3. And then we have 3 pieces of the white for our image. And I have you cut 3 because in case you make a mistake on one of the baskets, or you can, you'll still have 2 good ones. So these are 3.5 by 2 7/8, and you'll need 3 of those, an extra one. And lastly, you'll need out of thick whisper white, as well as your card bases. You'll need 1 piece that's 3 1/4 by 3 1/4, actually 2 pieces, because you're doing 2 cards. And then you'll need 2 pieces that are 3 1/4 by 1/2 inch. And I'll tell you what you'll be needing these for later as we assemble the card. Now we're going to start our stamping, and we'll need our piercing mat to go under our stamps. We'll need our Stamp-A-Majig, the plastic sheet that comes with it, and the Stamp-A-Majig arm as well. We'll need our 3 sheets, 2 that we need and 1 extra for our stamping. Now the reason we need this Stamp-A-Majig is so that we can center our stamps on our paper, center our images, because if we try to just stamp them, it's possible that we could do it and possible that we could do a good job, but it's so much easier when we use the Stamp-A-Majig. And how the Stamp-A-Majig works is, the first thing you do is you take your plastic and you put it in the corner of the Stamp-A-Majig arm, and you center it there so that it's up flush against the Stamp-A-Majig. And then you're going to take your stamp, which we're going to use the Thinking of You first, and you're going to ink it up. The Thinking of You is going to be in tip-top taupe. So let me get some tip-top taupe ink on there. And so we're going to actually stamp the plastic sheet. And if the image isn't perfect, that's okay, because it doesn't need to be. You just need to be able to see where the stamp is going to stamp. Now, the next thing is we have our paper, and we need to decide where we want our stamp image to be. And that's what's great about this plastic sheeting. You can move it around to where you want your Thinking of You to be. Now the Thinking of You should go, the little dots at the bottom, they are about, let me see, they are about 3/4 of an inch from the bottom. So you can kind of figure where your 3/4 of an inch is going to be. And that looks about right there. So I have it 3/4 of an inch from the bottom, and I have it even on both sides. So now I'm going to put my Stamp-A-Majig in place, and it's important that I don't move this at all. Once I have decided where I want my image and how I want my image, you make sure that I have it straight. Okay, now I can leave this in place and move the plastic. Get my ink back over here and ink up my stamp. And now I'm going to put my stamp, my block, in the L shape and go straight down. And I'll hold it for a few minutes so that the ink can sink in. And there you go. I have perfect placement. And what's great is that I can go ahead and do all of these the same way. So what we're going to do is we're going to put our plastic up against our Stamp-A-Majig, ink up our basket, and press down. And now we have the image of our basket. And we can use that to center our basket where we want it to be. Once we have our basket where we want it, and it's a little more than 1/8 of an inch above the F right there, but you can put it wherever you feel that you like, where you like the look. Gently pick this up so that you don't move the paper. Ink up your stamp, and then, like an elevator again, go straight down. And whoops, and straight up. And so we can do this with the other pieces that we have. Again, we're going to put our basket in place. Put our Stamp-A-Majig where we want our basket, where the plastic is. Okay, now we're ready to move on. Next, we're going to use the little succulent stamp, and I'm just going to put that, I'm actually going to kind of put it in the corner up here, but not really far into the corner, just slightly into the corner. Okay, I'm going to get my sheet, clean it off, and I'm going to get my Stamp-A-Majig, put the plastic there, ink up my stamp, the plastic's in the corner, straight down. Now I can see where my succulents are going to stamp. But I'm actually going to use Old Olive for my succulents. Okay, I have my Old Olive in place, and I'm going to take my stamped image over here, and I'm going to figure out where I want those succulents to be. I want to center them in the basket there, and that looks about right. So I'll get my Stamp-A-Majig arm and put the plastic in the L shape. Get ink on my stamp and go straight down. Now, I think that's great. I mean, that just makes life so much easier. Okay, we're going to do that with the other two. While we have our ink out, get our tip-top taupe out, we're going to go ahead and do the center, the sentiment in the inside. And the sentiment, this could be a birthday card, or it could just be a thinking of you card, or a get well card, or a sympathy card. We're going to use, for the inside, sending a basket full of wonderful wishes. it says for your birthday, but if you don't want it for a birthday card, then all you need to do is mask out the part that says for your birthday. So I'm going to go ahead and put this on. So for your birthday is the last line. And I'm not going to mask it out yet because I'm going to use my Stampin' jig once again for this part. I'm going to go ahead and stamp the full image onto the plastic, and I have the plastic here. Get this card out of the way. So I'm going to do the same thing, put the plastic up against the L and go straight down. Now that tells me where it's going to print or stamp. So now all I need to do is take this over here, decide where I want the image to be. Now if I wanted this for a birthday card, I could leave the birthday uncovered and just stamp it like that. But I don't want this particular one for a birthday card. So actually I think I will make one for a birthday and one for not a birthday. Okay, so I'll do the birthday one first. Get my ink on my stamp. Go straight down. Okay, see? Perfectly centered. All because of the Stampin' jig. Now the next one I'm not going to do as a birthday card. The next one I'm going to mask out the part that says happy birthday or for your birthday. And this is where the masking tape comes in. And you need a piece that's going to cover up the part you don't want, but you don't want it to cover up the center. So you want it to be able to ink up the first two rows, but not the last row. And then you're going to just kind of, it's good to leave a little piece sticking out so that when you have to rip it off, it's easy to do. So let's figure out where we want to stamp our Sending a Basket Full of Wonderful Wishes. About right there is good. So I'm going to make sure I do that right. Okay, so we'll move that. Now we're ready to stamp it up, and we'll do it just like we normally do, except before we stamp, we're going to make sure we're getting lots of nice ink on there. Before we stamp, we're going to tear that off. Be sure not to get ink on yourself. And we're going to go straight down. Now it just says Sending a Basket Full of Wonderful Wishes. Whereas this one says Sending a Basket Full of Wonderful Wishes for your birthday. Okay, the next part is we're going to do our coloring of our baskets. And if you've used your aqua painter before, normally you put water in it, but today we're not going to put water in it. Today we're going to do a little bit of a different technique, which I don't know if there's a name for it, but I call it the whitewash technique. If you think about how whitewashing the fences, the picket fences, it's just a thin coat of paint. Well, this is just going to be a thin coat of color, because the color, if you look at the basket, the coloring is not, it's not very bright. It's kind of muted. Now I put some water in the top to my stamping mist. I just put some water in there. You don't need very much. You just need a little tiny bit. And to get ink to use with our aqua brush, or if you don't have the aqua brush, your small paintbrush, you just squeeze the center, and that's a good amount, but I want a little more because I'm going to be doing 3. So I'm going to really squeeze it good. I'll leave it open. And we don't need this, but I like to use it kind of like a mat when I'm doing my painting. Okay, so I'm going to put some water in the corner here. Maybe about 4 or 5 drops. You don't want a whole lot. That way you can add water gradually. And you're just watering down the ink. And that's what gives it the whitewash effect. But if you had water in the pen, the aqua painter pen, it would give you too much water. And then you wouldn't have the same effect. And you'd get so much water that your paper starts to peel. Okay, so basically you're just going to go back and forth like this. And it's good to work not so fast that you make mistakes, but your ink will dry. So you do need to work rather quickly before your ink can dry. Not the ink on your paper, but the ink in your ink pad. It's a little bit tedious there in the handle, but you know, you have to be very careful because that's where it's easy to make a mistake. And that's why it's so great to have this very, very fine point tip of your aqua painter. It makes it so much easier to stay inside the lines. And it looks like there's a couple of white spaces here where I might have missed a little bit. Okay, so we're basically going to do that with all of these. Okay, once we're done with that, I can see I missed a spot right there. We're going to clean off our brush. Well, actually we don't need to clean off our brush. We need to clean off our ink pad. I'm just using a baby wipe. And then I'm going to dry it off. Okay, so once this is done, we're going to go back in and do some shading. And we're going to do some shading with some full strength. I'm going to dry off my brush. And we're going to do some shading with some full strength. So I'm going to squeeze my pad again. And we're going to use full strength, no water this time. And we're going to find the parts that are shaded. And like that's supposed to be like a pencil-like mark. So I'm going to kind of do it like a pencil mark for the shading down here and on the side. And then the little straps around the edge. I'm going to go alongside each one of these bands on the basket to give them some accentuation. Again, we're using no water and straight ink from our ink pad. Now these darker bands across, I'm going to go and accentuate those a little bit. And then I'm going to try to get the bottom here. Now the bands on the across the handle, I'm going to do those. Okay, we're going to let that dry. Now I'm not going to do the shading on these two. Now we're going to clean out our ink again. We don't want to leave that in our ink pad. Dry it off. Now we're ready to do our Old Olive, and we're going to do the same thing. We're going to squeeze till we get some ink, and I'm going to squeeze it a little bit more, so I want to have plenty. All right, and again we're going to get our water. I'm going to clean my brush off. It looks like it's pretty clean. Get a few drops of water over here, not too many. And then we're going to mix in the water with the green Old Olive. Now I'm going to clean off my brush just a little here, just to get the water off, because I don't want that much water on my brush. Now I'm going to just pick up some ink, and I have to apologize, my camera stopped, and I went ahead and finished coloring the succulents with my ink pad. So now we're ready to do our ribbon, and I have cut, since we're doing 2 cards, I've cut a piece of 7" and a piece of 6" for each card from the Whisper White ribbon that's in the Succulent Garden collection package. We'll be using the ribbon to make this little ribbon here. And this is a thicker ribbon. And because it is a thicker ribbon, if you, normally when you put ribbon under a card layer like that, if you have thick ribbon, you'll get like a little bump right there in your card. And so that is actually why we cut these 2 pieces here. They're going to act as a little buffer. I thought about putting some dimensionals under that layer, but it just didn't look right, and it made it stand out so much further away from the base that I didn't like it. So we'll be doing that. So let's get started with our layers. The first layer we're going to do, we'll put our ribbon aside, is our bottom layer, our first layer to our card. And that's pretty simple. We're just going to center it in the middle of the card. Okay, then once we do that, then we're going to put our flower DSP against our Old Olive, and then our smaller piece of Tip Top Taupe, we're going to put our image on it. Now we're ready to put this part, our image, or focal image, on top of here. And we just want to make it so that it's even on all 3 sides here, and it looks like it's about 1/4 inch. Now we're ready to do the ribbon. Now the 7" ribbon, the longer piece that we cut, is going to go around the card like this. But before we put it around the card, we want to add this little, like a faux bow or a little knot. And what you want to do is, this has a like a woven side and then kind of like a fuzzy side. I'm going to use the fuzzy side up on the card. So I'm going to put the fuzzy side facing me. And then this one, I'm going to also have the fuzzy side facing me. And I'm going to just basically do this. I'll let you look at it. I'm basically doing that. Now I want to make the bottom about an inch shorter than the top. Okay, so this is going to go around our card and this is going to make our bow, basically. And this is the fuzzy side right here. So what we're going to do then is we're going to go under the bottom, and I'll stop so you can see. We took the top one and we went under the bottom and there. Okay, now we're going to take it and go through the hoop that we just made. And it's important that you keep this in place, because once we go through the hoop, we want to go underneath this. And then once we go underneath it, we're just going to pull it tight like that. And we have a little bit, you don't want to pull it too tight, but you do want it to be snug. Alright, so once we, and then I just kind of take it and spread it out and pull it like that, like in an X, to give it a little more shape. Alright, so now we have this part that's going to go around our card, and this is where our tape comes in. We're going to take our tape, and let me get it off camera. We're going to take our tape, decide that we want this ribbon right underneath the top layer, and we want it so that it's off to the side just a little bit. So that's about where I want it, right there. So I'm going to flip it around, take my tape, and tape it. And I can see it's a little off on this side, so I'm going to reposition it. And that looks good. Now then, once I have that done, I'm going to go ahead and put this layer on top of this layer. And I'm going to put some adhesive across this. But I just realized that I had forgotten one thing. Remember when I talked about how bulky this is? That's what this is for. So we're going to add this piece above the ribbon. And if it's too long, you may have to trim it a little bit. I guess it depends on where you put your ribbon. I'm going to trim it just a little bit more. Ideally, it's like a quarter, not quite a quarter of an inch from along the sides. And then this little half-inch piece that we had, we're going to put it here. And now we'll put our tape on this. And all this does is just gives us a little extra height underneath the card so that that ribbon isn't so bulgy on the sides. And I can see that there's some tape here sticking out. I got a little generous with the tape. Okay, we're almost done. All we need left to do is to trim our little bow. And we trimmed the top one slanting this way. Trim the bottom one slanting this way. And it needs to be a little bit more of a slant, I think. There we go. And now I need to make this one a little shorter so it matches. Alright, so now we have our little card. Two thinking of you cards. We have one that says sending a basket full of wishes and one that says sending a basket full of wishes, wonderful wishes for your birthday. Thank you for joining me, and I hope that you've enjoyed this tutorial. Stay tuned for, I have 5 more tutorials on the Succulent Garden Customer Reward Package for the month of March. And thank you. Have a great day.